Welcome to Bleed Purple, a 10-part podcast about the 125-year history of Tarleton State University. Host Drew Myers will cover Tarleton's rich traditions, speak with notable alumni, and uncover the stories that give Tarleton its lasting legacy. Here's your host, Drew Myers.
Welcome to the Bleed Purple podcast. I'm your host, Drew Myers. The Bleed Purple podcast is telling the story of Tarleton State University through the stories of the people who bleed purple. And it is my honor and privilege to sit down with the dude that may bleed purple more than anybody else, Mr. DeWayne Burns. Hey, DeWayne, how are you?
Man, I'm great. Thanks for having me today.
Okay, so I mentioned this before we hit record on the podcast. I've heard you speak several times around Stephenville and, you know, on behalf of Tarleton. And I remember the first time I ever heard you speak, I was like, that dude loves this university. Is that safe to say?
That is extremely safe to say. One of my favorite things to do is speak about Tarleton and speak at Tarleton, you know. So I look forward to those opportunities to do that and to talk about Tarleton to other folks, man. In my previous career and all that kind of good stuff, I've had the opportunity to explain and talk about Tarleton and the story of Tarleton, and it's a fun thing to do. I love the place. Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk about your 10-year run as a state representative and how you got into state politics and all of that. But I want to go back to Cleburne, Texas.
All right.
Okay. You're about to graduate from Cleburne High School, and you're looking to go to college somewhere. Was Tarleton and Stephenville already on your radar? How did you end up at Tarleton, I guess is my question.
What a great story this is going to be. All right. So no, Tarleton was not on my radar. I was an Aggie through and through. Going to go to Texas A&M, man. I had the bedspread. I had maroon everything you could ever find. I mean, so I went to Texas A&M and enjoyed it. Did well there. I was an engineering major, and it was tough, but I was right in the thick of it. But the honest truth is, the woman of my dreams, my childhood and high school sweetheart, wouldn't come to Texas A&M. And she was, determined to come to Tarleton State University. And she came to Tarleton State, and I transferred sight unseen and came to Tarleton State. And really, that was a blessing. It was one of the best things that I've ever done, one of the smartest choices I ever made, and really I owe it all to Jennifer. And now here's the deal, though. Jennifer's mom and her dad both went to Tarleton State, and so did my mom. So we already had roots here. My wife's mother's brother and sister-in-law, and then my mom's sister and her kiddos have all come to Tarleton. So there's a lot in the family that bleed purple. And I was prepared to bleed maroon, but thank goodness we caught it in time, and I came here.
So. Okay, so you said sight unseen.
Sight unseen.
You had never been on campus?
Nope, never been on campus until my mom helped me register for classes, and because I was like, I'm going to go to Tarleton. Where's Tarleton State University? Because Jennifer's going to go to Tarleton. So how do we do this? And it wasn't a decision I made lightly or took lightly. I weighed things out, but no, I hadn't been to the campus, and we signed up and came, and it was a great thing. I got over here and got involved in the student body in different organizations, and before you know it, man, it was just something that opened my eyes to a new world. It helped me with confidence in speaking, all kinds of things, all because I followed her to Tarleton. It's her fault.
Man, that is crazy to think about. Again, I have not met a person since I've been around Tarleton State that bleeds purple any more than you, and it is kind of an accident that you ended up here. I use that kind of loosely because you said she was the love of your life.
She was, still is, yeah. I met her when I was 5. It wasn't a prearranged marriage or anything, but we met at church when we were 5 years old. And I will tell you, from in 8th grade, I was smitten with this young lady. She was my closest girl neighbor growing up. So I don't mean to sound too hillbilly for you, but she was my closest girl neighbor. Lived out in the country. I'm from the dirt, man. Didn't have anything, but we rode the bus together, and we took driver's ed together, and we did not date, just friends, until I went off to Texas A&M. And I got a letter from her my first semester in. We talked, and I would come home and see her on the weekends just as friends. I got a letter from her and said, man, I think I'm falling for you. And I was like, that's all I need to know, man. I'm good. I've been waiting on this my whole life. And I finished out the semester and then transferred that summer to Tarleton State. And best decisions I ever made, because Jennifer is still the love of my life, and we've got 3 kids, and I just love her to death. And then came to Tarleton, and I can't think of an institution that I really would feel as passionately about like I do for Tarleton State. And there's a lot of reasons why.
My face is hurting because I'm smiling so much, DeWayne. That is a great story. And you may know the answer to this, you may not. Why did Jennifer want to come to school here? What was the draw for her? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it was because it was just far enough from home, but not too far. And she's and I am too, but she was very, very family oriented and wanted to stay close to her family and her sister, and her sister wound up coming to Tarleton State as well. And then her sister's kids as well, and my kid. Anyways, we're still here. But she, just wanted to be closer to home, and wanted to get a good education, and wanted to be a teacher. And she knew Tarleton had a great reputation for making great teachers at the time, so it was a natural fit.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you transfer in, and what was your initial impression of Tarleton? And then talk about your time while you were here.
Yeah. So my initial impression was cowboy.
Okay.
Which is cool. I grew up on a farm and worked for Jen's dad when I was, growing up they have a ranch there in Johnson County. And so I worked with him and worked for him until I got other jobs, getting myself through college and different things like that. But, so I've kind of felt at home. It was a rural area. I'm from a rural area, not a big high school, and felt like home. Felt cowboy. Felt like home. And I was, the experience was great. I mean, I fell right in. Jennifer told me, she's like, I'm glad you're here. That's cool. I'm gonna go do stuff. You better do stuff too if you don't want to be lonely or whatever. And that was great. She was so smart. Still is. But so she got involved in Delta Zeta sorority, and I was like, well, I guess I'll give that a shot. Never really thought about it. I'm not really a fraternity dude, I don't think, but man, that turned out to be great too. And met some guys from Cleburne that I went to high school with that I did not know in high school at all. Didn't know him in high school. In fact, one of them I feared in high school, and because he was a football player. He played football at Tarleton, and a big dude. Anyways, he became my roommate. He became my big brother in that fraternity. And then the other guys from Cleburne that I did not know, that were all older or younger than me, we all became great friends, and to this day we are great friends. I mean, solid great friends. We were all been in each other's weddings. We all still spend Thanksgiving together and New Year's, and all of that was because we were brought together in the Greek life at Tarleton State, and had nothing. Even though we were all at the same high school at the same time, we did not know each other, but Tarleton brought us together.
What did you study at Tarleton, DeWayne?
I was an ag major, so I was a nuclear engineering and ag engineering major at Texas A&M, and then transferred here and became AS&D option 3, ag services and development. And option 3 allowed me to take business classes, business law, and things like that. And also, what I really liked about it, and the best thing about the ag program, in my opinion, was the internship. And that was what changed my life completely.
Oh, let's talk about that for sure.
All right.
Let's talk about the life changer.
Into it? All right, man. So, I was an AS&D major. So I had ag engineering at Texas A&M. And again, nothing against, Tarleton, because I love it, is, I was taking math and, science, calculus, all that kind of stuff was like engineering. And then it was a little different here at Tarleton, ag engineering. I took small engine repair and things like that actually were, that I love. And I still use, actually. During COVID, I rebuilt small engines for fun. But anyways, so I was an ag major, but I got to my senior year, and so this is all you folks out here that are still attending that don't know what you're going to do, getting into your last semester. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was an ag major. I don't have a ranch or anything like that to go home to, but I thought, what am I going to do? But we were required to have an internship, and so I wanted to do an internship. I didn't want to be an ag teacher necessarily or an extension agent. So the folks here, Dr. Ford and the other guys, the other folks here looked, and they found a position at Texas Department of Agriculture in Austin in the Intergovernmental Affairs Division. I didn't even know what that meant, but it was awesome. It was prior to the session, we were going in October. My internship was October to December, and that was prior to the legislative session. So I got there just at the right time to help those folks prepare for the legislative session that was coming up. And I got to meet Commissioner Perry. Commissioner Rick Perry was the commissioner of ag at the time, and introduced me to a whole world that I had no idea about in Austin, Texas.
Dude, I know the story doesn't stop there.
It doesn't.
You're on a roll. Keep
All
going.
right.
Okay,
All
so
right.
because it leads to your tenure in politics.
Yeah.
Just keep rolling, man. You're
Yeah,
doing great. You
yes.
should host this podcast.
No. You're the man. I went down there, did my internship, met some of the smartest people that I've ever met in my life at Texas Department of Agriculture, and they're still involved in state government, and they went on to do great things. One of them was a, chief of staff for Governor Perry, and then went to Washington when he was Secretary of Energy, and but just some smart folks, and they really mentored me and helped me. So I got a job with the Texas Grain and Feed Association right after my internship because of that, because of some of their connections, and I stayed there for a whole month, and then 2 state reps needed a guy to come and do whatever and be a legislative analyst, and so I got that job. I worked for 2 House members at the same time. There were one from West Texas and one from North Texas, my home district actually, and they had offices next to each other, so I just worked for both of them. And then about halfway through the session, they called me into a meeting and said, "You're leaving our offices." And I was like, "Oh no," because I'm planning to get married here in a few months to Jennifer, because she was going to graduate. And I said, "What have I done?" They said, "Well, you've done everything right. Department of Agriculture wants you to come back. Commissioner Perry has personally called and wants you to come back and work for them." So I went back and stayed there for about 3 years and became the coordinator for special issues for Commissioner Perry. And just an experience that I'll never forget. Got to travel the state with him and talk about ag policy and ag issues and brief him about things that were going on in West Texas and East Texas and the drought and pesticide issues and water quality issues. And I got to be involved in the legislative process and reviewing bills and analyzing bills and proposing changes to things like that. And impact, just kind of evaluating the impact it would have on rural Texas and agriculture as bills came through the pike. And I helped all of the senior staff that did that, analyze and approach that session. And we did that for a couple of sessions. Anyways, it was invaluable. But we took another, life has a course of its own. And we had a baby. And Parker, our oldest, came along, and we decided at that point, you know what, we want to get back home. We want to get back up near family and things like that. So I took a job as an inspector for the Texas Department of Agriculture. And I remember the senior staff folks were like, "Now, what are you going to do?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm leaving politics. I'm going to go back and actually do what I went to school for. And I'm going to certify seed, and I'm going to do, crop inspections. We're going to do insect traffic, all these kind of things that I actually learned about while here at Tarleton in the ag program." And so I became an inspector for Department of Agriculture, and did that up until about the time that I ran for the legislature.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What was the thing that made you trigger and say, "Hey, I want to make a run in politics," and kind of frame it up where you were in your life? Did you have all 3 kids at that point? 2 kids? Where were you at?
Yeah. So, as anybody knows, and if you get in a community that you love, you volunteer, and you become, once you volunteer, man, people put you to work. Yeah. And so I became, I was on the, I was on the Historical Commission for Johnson County. Then I served on the Economic Development Commission. And then before you know it, I was a fire commissioner, one of the most controversial things I've ever done. But, and then there was a school board opening. So I was encouraged to run for the school board. I had become the president of the Johnson County Farm Bureau because of our ag background and still living on the farm and everything. And so I was on the school board, and I joke around and tell people that was the most controversial thing I'd ever done. The only way to get out of that was to run for something else. And there was a position open at the state level. Rob Orr had retired, but seriously, folks in the Farm Bureau and ag world had come to me and said, "Why don't you consider running?" At the time, we had gone through the Barnett Shale, the
right.
natural oil and gas explosion had happened in our area. And so I learned a lot about property rights and pulling coalitions together and things like that. Literally, I would pull people together and say, "Let's meet at the church," because as a group, we're a lot stronger than we are as one person, because none of us knew anything about leasing or anything like that. We're no attorneys, and I don't mean to chase a rabbit here, but it was all integral in why I ran and how I ran, and forming some of these groups together and coalitions that we all really were just there to give us all a better voice when we were dealing with these big companies that were coming into our area that we were new to. We had no idea. So, but I built off that. And then when Rob Orr retired, there was a vacancy, and a lot of folks approached me about it, and we prayed about it as a family. I had all 3 kids were there on the ground, and we all prayed about it. The kids prayed about it, and we looked at it as a mission, man, as a ministry, really. And so we ran. No guarantee we'd win, but I felt like we needed to run, and so I ran. And not to get too religious or anything, but I told my campaign workers, I don't know if we're going to win or lose, but we're going to enjoy this, and we're going to reflect Jesus as best we can. And this whole thing, when you talking to people at the door, when you're knocking doors, when you're meeting people on the street, whatever, we're going to be happy, and we're going to be positive, and we're going to do what we can to spread the word, because you never know what people see in you, and then that makes them ask questions. But about, what's different about this person, we get a chance to talk about Jesus. Anyways, that was my approach. And then lo and behold, we won. And then I, had another opponent the next time, and we ran again, no guarantees, and we won again. And then, before you know it, you're there for 10 years. And it was the honor of a lifetime to serve my district, to serve the people that I grew up around and knew and loved. And but it's come to an end. I'm no longer the state rep. I'm not bitter about it at all. I hope you can tell in my voice that I'm not, because God has a mission for all of us. He's got, if you're listening out there, he's got one for you, shaped just like you, only you.
Love it.
You just got to find it, man.
Yeah, that's right.
And so there's something new for me. And we'll see what it is, but I can tell you this: Tarleton will play a role in it, and it always has. Tarleton has played a role in some way, in some aspect, since I left school, an impactful role in my life at every stage, and even when I was at the legislature, part of the true joy about being in the legislature, and things I worked for and cared for, were trying to help Tarleton State. And it was it was hard, but it was easy, because the story is so good. The story about Tarleton, and my experiences were with Dennis McCabe, and then of course I was gone, but then Dr. DeTavio and now Dr. Hurley, and just talking about their philosophies, talking about the basic philosophy here at Tarleton State, and where the university's going, is an easy sell. So I enjoy doing that, and I'm still going to do that. There are issues that I care about just because I care about them, and I'm going to advocate for, property rights because I care about it, and I'm going to advocate for Tarleton State because I care about it, and agriculture. So anyways, they can't get rid of me.
Okay, dude, I got to say this, man. I don't know a lot of politicians, but I have this image in my mind, this stereotypical image of what a politician is and looks like and whatnot. You don't fit into that stereotype. You seem like not that other people in politics aren't good dudes,
sure,
but I mean, you seem genuine, you seem real. I'd vote for you. Let's ride.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
But what is really cool is your heart for your faith, for your family, for this school, have really come across in that, that little narrative that you just walked us through. And I appreciate you sharing your story with us. And I think it's really cool. And I loved how you brought it back to Tarleton State University. I have some more Tarleton questions for you. Question number 1 is, I want a good DeWayne Burns Tarleton story when you were going to school here. I want it something funny, something outlandish, something inspiring, just a good story from the early 90s of going to school at Tarleton State.
Oh, man.
I know you got one. I know you do. I have no doubt about this.
Oh, there's a lot of good stories, just things that crop into my mind. I remember, if you were in the ag program at that time, I'm sure you do now, you had to raise pig. She had to, have babies, you had to nurse her through that, no matter what time, or your grade depended on how many of those little piglets survived, in the litter and all that kind of stuff. And so I remember we had a freeze. School was closed, and I got a call and said, "Hey, man, your pig's having babies." And I was like, son of a gun. So I got in the car and slid all the way out to the farm and got out there, and we delivered all those babies and clipped their teeth and their tails and all that kind of good stuff that we had learned to do, and all of them survived. But I remember that because I actually wrecked my car on the way out there, but it wasn't much of a car, so it didn't really matter, and it just hit into the curb. But it was I will never forget that because it was like 4 degrees or whatever when we were out there birthing those pigs. But that's a lot of stories like that. A lot of that's part of Tarleton, is the hands-on part of it. I remember pouring concrete, and it was cold, man, and with Professor Chumley, and we had to get out there, and it was less, get out there and get your hands dirty, and we did, and I learned something. We learned the math about how to partition off a slab or whatever, and measured off, make sure you're square, all that kind of good stuff, and then how to pass a slump test with concrete and cement, mix it up and make it right in the cold or in the hot. Learn how to wire. I remember wiring a wall in his class as well. And all things that I've carried with me that some people are like, well, why? Where are you going to use that? Those are, sometimes it's not what you learn, it's how you learn it, and then how you apply how you learned it, because all of those things took fortitude, and it took getting your hands dirty and not being afraid to do something you hadn't done before, and then a process of putting this thing in your brain and keeping it. And that's no different whether you're learning math or how to pour concrete or how to speak, or how to teach English, whatever it is. And so I don't know. The whole thing was great. Now I can tell you fraternity stories too, whatever you want to hear. I'm an open book. But those are just a few of the things that I remember just through class, and that stuck with me at the time. I also had to say this, and I don't say it to be braggadocious because it's just part of the deal. I played golf here at Tarleton.
Okay, I didn't know this.
Yeah. So not many people do, because if you watch me today, you'd never know. Well kept secret. I wanted to play golf because all the guys I was going to school with at the time in my fraternity and stuff, they all played golf, and they just beat the heck out of me. I was no good. I didn't even have golf clubs or anything when I got to Tarleton. And got some for Christmas from my parents, and then I'd go play, and then I'd go back home in the summertime and practice on the farm, and literally I made some greens with our tractor and stuff and played. And then by the time I was a senior, I was good enough to walk onto the team. Now, I wasn't good. Okay, I was not the best guy on the team or anything like that, but I was good enough to be on the team. And I loved it because it was just a great experience being on that Tarleton golf team. And a couple of years after I graduated, and rightfully so, Title IX, we needed to be fair. We had to lose some men's sports and gain some women's sports, and all that is great. And but the Tarleton men's golf team went away, but we created a women's team, one of the most successful women's teams over the last couple of decades, bar none, in the nation. And if you look at the championships they won, conference championships that they won, and all that kind of good stuff, the most successful. And I'm not saying that and I'd put them up against them any day. I'm not saying we were better than Princeton or whatever, but I'm saying if you compare conference championships and a record against anybody in the nation, our Tarleton women's team was better than everybody. And now we had to do it away with the men's team to get there, but you know what? It was greatness. And then one of my initiatives when I came back to the legislature and was able to help Tarleton have some influence and help raise money for Tarleton, things like that, was to bring back the men's team. And so I'm proud of that. I believe I was integral in asking John Sharp and the regents and everybody saying, hey, let's get a men's team back. That was a storied program before I got there. I didn't have anything to do with the storied part. I was just a part of it. But they had won championships, NAIA championships under Coach Campbell and things like that. And I was like, we need a men's team, man, especially if we're going to be D1. And here we are. And we've got a great men's team. We've got a great women's team. And I'm just proud to be a little part of that.
Man, you love this school.
You do.
You love it. So I have to ask you this as we close things down. We could probably talk for 2 hours about Tarleton and your story and all the things, and we could hear fraternity stories. I almost asked to tell one, but I won't. But listen, I want you to be very clear about what you love about Tarleton. DeWayne, what do you love about this school?
Okay, here's what I love. I get teary-eyed thinking about it. It was for kids like me. It always has been, and it still is. You know, I wasn't a first-gen college student. My mom, she attended Tarleton. In fact, my mom went to school my whole life, I felt like. You know, she was my parents worked hard. We didn't have much, but she went to school, and they sacrificed enough to send me to school, but also mom to school so she could be a teacher and then a counselor, and a very good one at that. And but it was geared towards kids that wanted to work hard. Might not come from the richest families, and you might not be a Rhodes Scholar or whatever, but if you were willing to work hard, you could get a good education, a very, very good education, and we'll take care of you here at Tarleton. And we're going to do it. I don't like to say cheaper than everybody else, because education's not cheap, but we're going to be the most efficient at doing it so that you're not going to have to spend as much as if you go somewhere else. And Tarleton has consistently been the most efficiently run university in the state. And we do more with less than anybody else. And so, kids like me, that's why I love it. And there's kids like that in cities. There's kids like that in the country. There's kids like that of every sex and color that are out there that are hardworking kids that will make a great future and are going to be great students. They just need an opportunity, and Tarleton provides that. First-gen students, kids from the dirt, kids from the streets, kids from all over, but we're also, you know, a flagship university, the crown jewel of the Texas A&M University system, without question. And if you are a Rhodes Scholar, if you are a genius, come to Tarleton, because we got a place for you too. And that's why I love it.
Man, drop the mic. DeWayne Burns. I'm telling you, when we came up with the idea for this podcast, I was like, DeWayne Burns better be one of the first guests that come on this show for sure. Thank you so much for sharing your heart for the school, sharing your story, and it's contagious, man. It really is.
Thank you for having me. I love this school, Bleed Purple, and good luck to you guys. Appreciate y'all having me.
Absolutely. You're listening to Bleed Purple, the official community podcast of Tarleton State University, telling the story of this university through the stories of the people who bleed purple. This podcast is brought to you by the 125 Committee and Tarleton State Radio. I'm your host, Drew Myers. Thank you so much for listening. Bleed Purple. See ya.
Are you ready to take control of your financial future? Doug McLemore is the founder of McLemore Financial Group and a proud Tarleton graduate and supporter. The company specializes in providing personalized financial planning and investment strategies tailored just for you. Whether you're saving for retirement, planning for your child's education, or seeking to grow your wealth, their experienced advisors are here to guide you every step of the way. You can find them at 1529 West Lingleville Road in Stephenville, or on the web at McLemoreGroup.com, or give them a call at 254-968-1020 to schedule your free consultation. McLemore Financial Group is your partner in financial success. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through McLemore Financial Group, a DBA of Advisor Resource Council, a registered investment advisor. McLemore Financial Group and Advisor Resource Council are separate entities from LPL Financial.